I am Nancy Bouffard. I was Nancy Lewis. I'm with Child Nutrition Programs in the Agency of Education in Vermont. We are a USDA state agency administering several of the USDA meals programs. We have school meals, we have summer food, we have child and adult care food programs, fresh fruit and vegetable, and USDA foods all in our little group in the Agency of Education. So I put this email footer signature so you can see who I am, and I can put that up again. This is my contact information if you need to get a hold of me. I'm also at Nancy, which should be in my signature, Bouffard at vermont.gov. And before I actually go into the new website, I wanted to show you, for those of you who aren't familiar, I want to show you our Agency of Education summer food webpage. And the way that I get there, because it's such a long URL or email address, I could often get a typo. If I tried to remember how to type it in, I could save it as a shortcut if I wanted to. But I Google search Summer Food Vermont, and for me it comes up as the first link. And I just clicked on it. And as I go down through here, I see there's a bunch of different sections. It does address both the seamless summer option and summer food, but it has information about the program in general. We've got our training here. I will post today's webinar here. I've got a link to the USDA summer food recording. So informational. And then we start getting down into specifics that may or may not be helpful for you as you're doing your agreement and working on renewal for this year. So this section, ideally we would have had intents in by April 15th. That's the purpose of the intent is for programs to let us know they will be operating this year, and it helps us start our communications with you. And then agreements, we had a noble goal of having them in a few weeks earlier this year, but because of the new online system and the delays, we've had to go back to our usual deadline, which is June 1st. There's an absolute drop-dead date that USDA has of the agreement, of us having an agreement from you by June 15th. So we have a little bit of time there, and people sometimes ask, what if I want to add a site later? And that's fine. I count the agreement as having at least the overall organization agreement started with us. We should have agreements approved in our system and approved before the operations at those sites begin. So that's a guideline for you. And further down on the page are a bunch of different forms or books, or there's a meal pattern piece. There's a whole bunch of pieces there. So I just wanted you to know this page is here. If you're looking for a particular template form or some information, you could maybe find it there. But of course, you can always email me or call me. So I'm going to log out just so you can see me log in. And you'll notice I'm not even at our production site. We have a test site, so I do have a shortcut for our production site. So this year, we migrated. We used the same vendor, the same basic idea of how agreements work in the online system and claiming, but we moved to a new platform, new technology behind the scenes, and we have a new URL. So instead of running this on our servers here in Vermont, they're being run on the vendor's servers. So everybody was sent an email over our listserv, and it gave instructions for logging in, and a lot of people had trouble with the Welcome One password. And we've reassigned and made new passwords, and if you are still having trouble with logging in the online system, of course, get in touch with us. But I think we've helped a lot of people get in, and people have come and started their agreements. So let me log into the new system. You're going to see it from my view, the initial entry, I have access to a lot more things than most of you. Some of you do have access to some of these other programs, but there's this tile system here, and the webinar today is about the Summer Food Service Program. And again, this isn't quite exactly what you would see as an organization or sponsor coming in, because I have access to lots of organizations. And maybe I'll just pick one that was having trouble the other day. Franklin West. Okay. So I didn't ask permission, but I don't think there's any confidential information in our system. So hopefully this is okay. So most of you will already be defaulted into your organization. And you can see, those of you who use the old system, the navigation is a little different. You should have gotten a webinar or an email also telling you about the recorded webinars, or maybe you took part in them, that just spent an hour giving an overview of how to navigate around in this new system for the applications and then the hour for the claims. So we have those available on our Policy and Administration page in our Agency of Education Child Nutrition Program website. I want to stop, and I want to see if anyone is having any major issues with how I'm presenting or hearing or seeing or anything. If you don't, that's fine. I don't need to see anything. I just want to kind of check in with everybody. I will go to attendees to see if anybody wants to raise their hand at this point. I haven't really started into the presentation, so this is just a technical check to see that everybody's doing okay. And I am not really seeing anything pop up, so I'm going to proceed. So what we're mostly concerned with at this point in time is applications and getting them completed. This is a weird year in that we converted from an old system to a new system, and we pre-populated information from the prior year into the new year. So there is a place for you to check the year, and you will default into 2015, 2016, or you should. If you wanted to look at history, we have 2 years worth of history. You could go to prior year. But the new system collects more information than what was in the legacy or the old system. So the conversion wasn't complete, couldn't be complete, because we just didn't have enough to fill in all the buckets, all the places that we have for information. So we brought over what we could for information, but we need you to go in and complete the agreements. And of course, they look a little different, and they have a little bit of different information. So I'm going to kind of quickly go through the different parts and the sequence that I would use. And then maybe I'll look at my notes, see if there's any pieces that I missed that I wanted to talk about, and then I'll open it up for questions, because I know there may be some areas where people have gotten hung up. So this is the main application packet page. You see some information that we maintain about the overall organization. We are still working out some of the kinks. I know some of the types of organizations came out as for-profit. I've logged that as an issue with the vendor. We have packet status over here, and we know also there's a bug. If you work with school programs, you may be already working in the system in a further state, as in submitting claims and having experience with that. And we have found that the piece that should be working the way I'm going to explain it isn't working. It's going to be fixed. But packet status should be approved for you to submit claims. That's the intention, and that's where we're going. So if your packet isn't submitted yet, your claim is not going to work right. It's not going to have a final piece, a final decision, let's say, a final reference point to pull the claim off of. So that's something to keep an eye on. And there are statuses all over the place in here. So there's a status column right along here in this menu where you have the different forms or applications, and then there are statuses down here below with the site applications. So the sequence that I am thinking is going to work the best is to take care of your organization application. I'm going to go in on modify. I'm not going to save it, but I want you to be able to see what the different options are. So if I go into modify, I get the drop downs. If you go into view, you can't see all of the different moving parts. This new system puts in red things that absolutely must be done and puts in blue warnings, things that you might want to notice, may be a question that you want to answer, but don't require you to take any action, that you can still submit for approval or continue on your way. So in this case, we only have some red errors that have to be taken care of. And all of you will get these errors. And the way you can initially get them is to just come in to modify and then click save at the bottom, and it'll give you an option, if you have errors, to come right back in and fix the errors. If you don't click save initially because of the way we did conversion, and again, this is a different year, it'll never happen this way again, this is just from new system setup. If you just came in initially, even though you have errors from save, you won't see them. So you need to click save if you want to see the errors. And the errors are really helpful at this point because they tell you what information is missing for completing your agreement. So a lot of this is the same as what we did before, but there are some new pieces. County is a new piece, a new required piece. We didn't collect that in the old system. This organization has already started doing some work, so county's filled in, but for a lot of you coming in the first time, county would not be filled in. It's a drop down. There are boxes here that you can click to use prior information, so you just might want to pay attention to save yourself some typing to use those. So you can, pull in people from above. There's all kinds of different contacts. It could be all the same person doing this one job. Doesn't have to be different people. Training is required. So a lot of the questions that are being asked relate to the rules of the summer food program. The summer food service program requires at least one person from each sponsor to attend training every year. This year, our training is those online quizzes, which could be helping you learn something or not, depending how long you've been in the program and what you're doing. But that was our intention, is to provide for training with those online quizzes. And we won't be able to approve your agreement unless we know your training is taken care of. So there's a challenge. And I do apologize for not being able to score them right away and get back to you. I know that's crazy because you don't know what, how you did on those quizzes. But I will tell you that we have all the emails. I can get them scored and get back to you. But I also have data in a database from all the answers, and it gives me some ideas for trends. Let's say if I notice a lot of people are struggling with certain answers or in a certain topic area, we might have to do some webinars on that. So I wouldn't concern yourself. A lot of it is the purpose of the design, let's say, of the quizzes and gathering some answers is to know where we need to deliver some more training. I know it's not the best medium for everybody for learning because those trainings require you to click on links and go do a little research if you don't know the answer. So I know it's not ideal. I do believe there will be a conference next year, so this year's just been a strange year. So we've got all these things are required by USDA training, ethnicity. There is a link right here that allows you to go out and gather census data on race and ethnicity, so you know what the geographic makeup is. And the idea from the USDA end is they are looking to see if your site, especially if you're an open site, the makeup of your race and ethnicity somewhat reflects the larger community. So if you had an open site and it was really off, and again in Vermont, we're mostly white, we're not going to really see that, but you can imagine in some other parts of the country, if there was a really big difference, it might make you wonder what's happening at that site that isn't so friendly to a certain group. So I'm at quarter after, and I want to just check in again to see if anybody really needs to stop me right now. And you could either raise your hand and I'll unmute you, or you can type in a question, and if I'm good, I'll just keep going on and go through my overview and then open it up again for questions. But I just didn't want to talk too long without checking in and seeing if anyone's really having trouble. So I'm not spotting anything right off. I'm going to continue on. Still on the organization application, it's not too long, but it does ask some more questions, and it's asking from that overall sponsor level. So we do provide a media release for you. It's on that summer food page. The recruit is how do you get kids into your program. That's different. That's Lori's view on what that question is, and that's different than how I thought of it in prior years. So that I'm going to go with what Lori's saying. These are all based on the civil rights requirements. So you don't want to discriminate. You want to make sure your location is accessible even to people in wheelchairs. And there's just other questions here. There's the non-discrimination statement requirement. If you don't know what that is or think you need the correct version now or an explanation, you can send me an email. There's just a bunch of stuff there. There is another section about training. So the idea with having one person from the sponsor, at least one person attend state agency training, is then that person goes out and trains the different roles or the different people that have responsibilities in the summer food program according to what their roles are. So this is where it's asking who is going to be conducting the training for the rest of staff. And we have a place to request advances, and I can't process advances until I get an approved agreement. So I'll try to keep an eye open for advances. And again, I have been pulled and spending most of my time trying to get the new school nutrition program system running and have spent less time on the online agreements. I hope that changes soon. And I also believe that I'm going to have help in the form of Scott Wagner, who you may have met through reviews in prior years. He's the food service director over in Williston. And he's going to be helping me with renewals this year too. So hopefully you'll be meeting him before long. So there are different questions to answer here, and certification, and then you can save, and that will be one part. And you want to keep an eye on your status because you want to get it to a state where it can be submitted for approval. And you'll know it's the whole agreement, this whole package is there because the red submit for approval button will come up. But I can tell by looking at statuses there are things to be done before I'm going to get my submit for approval button. The budget is interesting this year in that it takes information from the site. It looks at your projected numbers and then predetermines or estimates your reimbursement and pre-populates the budget. So I think you should go to the site applications next. But there's also this new food production facility, this new concept, which is a separate piece in the new system. So there are questions on the site agreements about where your food is coming from in relation to where it's being served. So if you're satelliting, or that's pretty much it. If you're serving food in a location other than where it's produced, you're going to need a food production facility. So you might want to go do that next. This one has one. Although it may not really. In this case, there was confusion because this Franklin West Supervisory Union, this location, they only have one location that they serve meals, Bellows Free Academy, Fairfax, and they use a food service management company. So there was confusion in trying to sort out, well, does this require a facility or not? In this case, I said it doesn't require this facility. We can delete it because the food is both prepared and served at Bellows Free Academy. It just happens to be prepared by a management company. That does not require a food production facility. So if you think on any of your sites you're going to say that they were satellited or you know, if you had a case where you were catering or vending out to a different sponsor or delivering someplace else, you would want to make your main kitchen facility be in this list here so that it's available in a drop-down list on the site agreements, and I'll show you that. So a lot of places won't have to do that food production facility list. They can go, after going to the organization application, they can go to their site agreements. And I'm suggesting that, as I said, because of the relationship between information on the site agreements and the budget. Sites are, you know, very similar to what we've had in the past. They're the places that meals are served. And a lot of information has been carried over, and we designed or requested that the new system carry over site information from prior years if those sites existed. So hopefully that's going to make your life easier. We didn't do that in the old system. So same sorts of address, organization. This asks specific details about this site, when it's running, days of operation, the meals it's serving. It goes more granular than what we saw in the old system. It also doesn't have that overall umbrella. I think some of you may remember in the old system you had to get your start and end to encompass all your sites on the organization application. If you remember what we just saw, you don't have to do that anymore. So basic questions. Nobody's in a standard metropolitan area in Vermont except for the Burlington folks. And but okay, never mind. I'm not going to go there. So most of you are not licensed child care facilities. We didn't ask for that. That came. I don't know what I would do with that information. I know USDA is really pushing for us to reach more of the HUD or public housing or USDA-funded housing units. So this may be a way for us to track if we're meeting their request to try to reach them. And this question number 25 is being asked because there is a rule that if you're only serving summer school kids, you cannot participate in SFSP unless you decided you were opening up to the community, in which case you wouldn't be serving just summer academic kids. So that question would alert us to the fact that really you should be staying under your school meals program. That's what you should be doing if you serve summer school kids. Keep claiming under NSLP or breakfast. Some more questions here. This next section about, as we get into eligibility, that's, I think, eligibility is always challenging for people, but it has the most confusing look to it, I think. This question number 29 is about trying to manage whether there would be more than one reimbursement to a particular kid and people competing. So there is a precedent or a hierarchy, let's say, of if you had one area and two sponsors were competing to serve it, the school food authority, one that ran the National School Lunch Programs, would have first dibs on it. This talks about within 1/4 mile, so that is helping you think about whether that is the best design and would kids be going to the two sites. I don't think we have a lot of that in Vermont, but it would be something for me as a state agency person to question and just help you manage in terms of competition and correctly reimbursing. So here we get into different types of sites, and needy area would be a low-income area that's determined either by census or school data, and you're allowed to have a closed enrolled site in a low-income area without asking information about individual student eligibility versus typical closed enrolled in a non-low-income area. You would have to get individual student eligibility information either from the school or from an application. So we have these different options for site type, and then of course different things will open up that's something different in this new system is depending on how you answer one question, it may require different information. I also noticed when you fix errors, sometimes you fix one error and then a new error pops up that you hadn't seen before. That's also a possibility in the system. It's not going to happen a lot, but it's just the way that the design is, where one answer to one question could impact the way or the functionality or how a different question or ability to answer works. Hope I said that in a way that made sense. The pieces of the agreement may impact each other depending how you answer a question. So this is asking about, so let's say this is a closed enroll. Let's pick open. Sorry, I'm on my little laptop and it goes with my little mouse pad. I'm not really good at controlling. So here we've got an open site. It has this list of eligibility sources. If we go to a closed enrolled site that's already been determined to be low income, we have a different set of responses down here. Let's do a camp. We have different options. So this is what I mean about how things impact each other. So I may need to help you if you don't know about eligibility. I could spend hours talking about it. If you need help filling in eligibility, let me know. This piece right here for census eligibility, I'll quickly show you where to go because we've never had to put in block information before. I have two tools that I use. I use Census. So there's a USDA site. That allows you to drill down and drag around and eventually gets color-coded as a yes or no. And then there are census blocks. So as you get more granular, there are outlines around the census block. But when you click on it, you can get the data that we need to put in on the agreement. There's also a summer food mapper that FRAC uses that has this information. But this one seems pretty straightforward to me if you want to use that, or you can call in and I'll help you. But you can see there's more, there's more here to be explained. Basically, pink is yes. There's an ID here that gives you a code that you can put in on the agreement, and there's a free and reduced percent. And that's what this asks for. Block number, group number. You put that same code in these two, and the percent of needy children is listed right here. So I don't know how many of you have census, but there is a place to go, or I can help you. And then there's a requirement that that the sponsor, the nonprofit sponsor, provide a year-round service. So there's a way to answer that. And if you had chosen closed enrolled, this would open up here to let you put in information. Next section about site operation, all kinds of different options for what you're going to be doing at that one particular site, how you're going to communicate to the central kitchen, about using our forms or not. We really want you to use our forms because they have the required USDA information. Here we've got, can go even more granular and only serve breakfast on certain days of the week or in a time, so it allows you to tailor even smaller, and here we can capture meal times. We didn't used to do that. That's going to be great for us as we plan our reviews. And here's this meal service method that will drive whether or not you need a food production facility list. So if you were going to be anything but self-prep, I believe, well, you know, I don't know. I haven't tried them all. I know this satellite site will require a food production list. I don't know that Vended does, because Vended would be a food service management company, and I think it gathers information right here on this agreement about that. So I think it's basically, if you pick a satellite site, and I don't think the Vendeds are going to, at least that's how I'm thinking of it. So I apologize, I'm not 100% sure about that, but if I'm thinking right about the way the summer food works versus the school year stuff, I think Vended doesn't need a food production facility. And also I don't think knows a lot about the contracting, which is kind of different than what we did in the legacy system. So similar things with lunch, and then camps. Camps require a start. They require the sessions. They're a little funkier. So if you do have true camps, you might need to have me help you fill in that section, because what you put in for start and end dates down here comes up and impacts these start and end dates here. Here's the place that your food production facility would come in. Some bunch of food safety things, you know, some of these you've seen in the other, and then in the legacy system. So you would complete this, and then, you know, if I were really doing this, there would be a save and a finish, or if you've got errors, you could go back in and work on it to correct the errors. And then we got a budget. So a lot of people ask why I can't input the budget. Well, that's because it's projecting it out from the site. And there are places you can put in costs. So really good exercise to do. We do require a budget. I don't know what other questions you might have about that, so I'm just going to not stay here. And we've got some optional things. The field trips, instead of sending me forms, you can put them in the online system. And checklists, there are actually fewer things required. And the way I've gotten used to looking at this is the total items column will populate when an agreement is requiring something to be submitted. And the submitted items will populate, that column will populate when you come in here and actually say you've submitted, and you can attach into the system now instead of doing hard copies. So this is an improvement. Right now we don't have anything required on the site. So before you're going to get the red button submit for approval, the checklist items are going to have to all be submitted. They're going to have this column has to have the same number as the total items submitted. So once you get all your pieces in here, they're complete, your statuses are pending approval or submitted, you will get a red submit for approval button, in which case you should notify me that you're ready to be approved, and then I'll come in and do my piece. And the status needs to be approved before you can get into claims. I'm just going to look at my notes quickly. Oh, and it looks like we've got some questions. I'll start with questions. Just see if there's anything else I wanted to mention that I haven't mentioned already. I think I'm good. Okay, I think I've covered the basics that I wanted to that was new. So let me look at questions. And I think I need to pull this whole box out because it's hard to read. So I'm just expanding my tool for reading. So somebody asks, is the application done at each school or at the supervisory union only? And I can't answer that. It's not something we dictate. I could imagine an organization application being done at the supervisory union because that is the organization that's fiscally responsible for all the sites. The supervisory union gets the check and sends the money out. So maybe a business manager could fill in the organization application, and then maybe people who are running the different sites would fill in the sites. Or I've seen it where somebody in the supervisory union office fills in all the sites for everybody. And I've also seen it where somebody in a site fills out the organization application. So it's all over the place, and we don't dictate how it happens. So that's something you need to work out in your organization. And somebody asked about outreach and ethnicity, and is it for the entire area or each individual site? It is for the entire geographic area, and you can think about it for the county, because the link that you click on there gives county information, and I think that's adequate. We don't switch that much in Vermont. There's not that much difference of diversity between the different counties, and there's differences in Burlington, whatever, but it's not huge across all of Vermont. And so I think using the county data is representative enough. There's a question on the closed enrolled sites. Is it being vended from another school? How would you answer that? Okay, I don't necessarily see any relationship between closed enrolled and vended. Vended is about how the food is being produced, and if you're hiring a separate entity to provide the food service. So how meals are prepared says nothing about who's going to eat those meals. Closed enrolled is about the group of kids that are going to eat the meals. Is it one particular set of named kids, so you have a list of kids, you know who's going to eat? If so, that's a closed site. It's closed enrolled. You have an enrollment list. So maybe that person wants to ask the question a little differently. Needy area equals area eligible or 50% free and reduced. Needy area, that is correct. It's a low-income area, and summer food has lots of ways it gets to low income. It uses grandfathering from prior years. It uses the fact that you run an open other program like CACFP or SFSP. It uses census data. It uses any month of school data. There's just all kinds of ways we look at low-incomeness, and that's what needy area is. Yes, you've had a determination that the area is needy. So we start with that 50% list, that list that says whether or not a school, and with the one we produce, looks at the October claim, and it just looks at free and reduced eligible in a particular school. So we work from there. There could be multiple elementary schools in a town, in which case you couldn't use school data to determine a town eligibility. You really need it to be, for a school to make a whole town needy, that school needs to be the only school serving that grade group in that town. And somebody tells me my voice keeps cutting out and lost audio. Okay. Where do you find the area eligibility tool for census data? Okay, let's go back and just look at what I did to get that area eligible for census. Let's get my question thing out of my way so I can get over there. Sorry, I have to flip around. So all I did, I used Google. You could use another search, and I said area eligible, eligibility, summer, USDA. Let's try that. And because I've been here before, I know it's this area eligibility link that brings us to this map. And I can drill down from there. And as I drill down, I get colors that tell me whether a certain area is area eligible via census. So if you have a central kitchen providing meals to several sites and it is vended, what do you choose? Choose the one that is for that particular site. So if you have, let me go back to the agreement and see what the different options are, because they're by site. Sorry, I have to move my question box out of the way to navigate around on the site. So in the sites, under the meals, so it could even be different for different meals. We have this L5 or B5 for breakfast meal service method. So it could be received meals or it could be vended by a food. So I would say if it's both, it receives meals and vended, honestly, I don't care which one it is, and I didn't ask that they put the food production facility in. So I say, vended. I'm just thinking about this. What would be more valuable for me to know that it's a satellite site? I guess I'd rather know it's a satellite site, that I would have to go to a different, if I were doing a review, I'd rather know that I needed to go to a different site to see where the meals are being met. So pick a satellite site, whether or not it's vended. So I just made a decision. Okay, another question. If we're doing offer versus serve, do we need to send in the waiver to Unitized meals? So the Unitized meals requirement is for food service management companies providing the food. The intention is that when you buy that service, the food service management company takes care of portioning and the work that goes into figuring out what makes a reimbursable meal. You can waive that as a sponsor because you want to have the food delivered in a different way. You want to do family style. You want to do something else. So yes, you're allowed to do that if you want. You're not required to do that. Again, this is a service to the sponsors to make sure that they're not taking on more work than what they wanted. So it starts with an assumption that all meals prepared, delivered by a food service management company will be unitized. All the parts of the meal will be will be packaged in a way so that no decisions have to be made at the site about what constitutes a reimbursable meal. If you're doing offer versus serve, then I guess I'm going to assume the person asking this question has a food service management company. You want to explicitly sign off that you're waiving your right to have it be unitized. So yes, you should do that waiver. If you don't have a food service management company, it's a non-issue. Can these site screens print out so we can give them to site collectors and then we input? You would just use the browser print to do that. There's not a print function within the agreement for you to do printing. So I just use your browser print. I know the deadline's June 1st, but I'm guessing there's some wiggle room with the deadline for site agreements and the other. Yes, there's wiggle room. I said earlier, I really need an agreement. I need to have something in-house by June 15th if you're going to operate this year. That's got to happen. Can you repeat what you typed in Google to get the area eligibility, please? Yeah, you know, I type in different things at different times. But I do think this is a cool tool, so I don't mind. So this time I typed in area eligibility summer USDA. I think you can even do like just, I think the keywords are summer, USDA, and eligibility. And then the link that I got to was this one right here that brought me to that map. Looking down, I'm scrolling down in my questions. Oh, did somebody put in the link? Okay. So I am going to, I don't have any more typed questions right now. And you can continue typing them, but I think I will see if anybody has a raised hand. And I will unmute you if you'd like to ask a question. I'm scrolling down through. I don't see any raised hands. Let me go over to my PowerPoint again and just show you how to raise a hand. Nancy's got to move her question screen again. Okay. Oops. So there's a little, on your little tool control panel, there's a raised hand, this little icon right here. And that allows me to see in my list of participants that somebody has a question. So I'm not seeing that. Let me go back and check my questions, and if we're all set, if we don't have any more questions, I can be done. So sorry if I missed this. Passwords. Originally, you use your same username that you had in the old system. Originally, we assigned Welcome 1. It doesn't seem to be working for people, so what we've done is when people have let us know that they were locked out, we've took the lock off. So the new system is very particular about only allowing you to fail 3 times before they lock you out from trying any more into the new system. So if you get locked out, you have to call us and we have to unlock you. And then if you were locked out with that Welcome 1, we are giving you a new password, a new starter password, and then you change it when you log in with that starter password. The system requires you to put in another 10-digit password with, it has to have a special character in it. So if you then forget or miss that password and you lock yourself out again, we'll go through the same procedure. You let us know you're locked out, we'll unlock you, and we'll give you your starter password, and you'll go through it again, and you'll set up a new password for yourself. And I think it does restrict you from reusing passwords, so you might have to be creative and create a second one. So it just depends on how many times you lock yourself out. So there's that answer. Let me see if there's any other. Letting you know we need new password. Okay, I am making a note. I will do that when I get back to my desk. I can tell you what the new password is going to be, because I give the same one to everybody because you have to change it anyways. It's welcome $123, but I will have to unlock your username when I get back to my desk. It will be you know, that'll have to do. But I always give the same password, welcome $123 when I have to reassign your password. All right, looking for more questions before I say we're done. Okay, just noticed someone else needs an unlock done. So, yeah, okay, I got a couple of you now. Any other questions? If not, I'm going to say goodbye. Going once, going twice. Whoops. Let me see. Okay, I got that one. I'm all set with the password. Okay, I don't see any new questions. Thank you, everybody. I'm sorry that it's been so challenging this year between the trainings and everything. I want it to be better, so I'll help as much as I can. All right, take care. Have a great holiday weekend.